folks, so just a quick one today as I'm running out of spaces to film in because I'm almost imminently about to move. So lounges, chock-a-block with boxes. But let's get to the point. As the title said, talked about action cameras, and one thing that's quite difficult to use on action cameras is ND filters when you want to get cinematic frame rates. What do I mean by cinematic frame rates? Well, you watch any movie, go on Netflix now or something like that, watch a movie, pause it in an action scene, and you'll see that the things that are moving in the scene look blurry. How is this achieved? You achieve this by setting the frame rate to what's called a 180 shutter speed. That would mean, like, I'm filming at the moment in 4K 25p, and the lighting is such that I can set the frame rate of the camera or the Osmo, the Pocket 3 that I'm recording on to 1/50th of a second, so that when I move my hand like this, if you pause this video here, you'll see that the frame rate is slow enough to capture the blur of my hand. Action cameras tend to record at very high frame rates, especially in strong light, for their stabilization to work. They have excellent stabilization. Osmo Actions use rock steady stabilization, and I use this all the time. And it's great for in a pinch when you're just out and that's all you've got. But if you pause any recording that you take on a camera at default settings in bright conditions, it's probably been recording at 1/2000th of a second, for argument's sake. And when you pause that, it's like looking at a still. Now, this can sometimes look okay, but if you are riding on a motorcycle and you're wanting to film that, or you're wanting to actually convey the motion and the action, then you need to use as close as possible to a 180 shutter. So these are my settings for action cameras. Works on Osmo Action. I don't know if it'll work on others, but it should do. But I'm only familiar with the DJI Osmo Action, so that's what I'll tell you. Set the camera to your desired settings, so 4K 25, 1080p 25. But you're not actually going to set it to 25 frames a second. You're going to set it to 50 frames a second. You're then going to set the ISO to auto so that it automatically decides it. Depending on your lighting conditions, you may need an ND filter. But the trick is we're going to use a 90-degree shutter speed because it's a compromise. So to get a 90-degree shutter speed at 1/50th, we would set it to 1/200th of a second. And I'm going to now play some footage that I recorded with these settings, and you can pause this as well, so you can see what it's like, and it does work quite well. So while you're watching this footage, I'll also go into details of why rock steady, which is the stabilization, doesn't work. I think it's flow state on other cameras, like the GoPros. Why it doesn't work at low shutter speeds. And essentially, in order to stabilize, it has to compare all the different frames as it's recording the camera, and it uses these different frames to adjust and stabilize, cropped in slightly to stabilize the image. Now, one of the problems you're going to get there is if there's a lot of motion blur on these images. You've also got fewer images when you're at a lower frame rate for it to sample from. So when you tend to record at a lower frame rate, you tend to get this problem where the stabilization isn't particularly good digitally. And the threshold I've found seems to be about 1/200th to get decent stabilization. Now, when you finish recording this, it's at 1/200th. You're going to go into your video editing software and you're going to drop it onto your timeline. You're going to make sure that your timeline is set to 1/25th of a second, and then the footage will play back and the audio will be synced as well. The default in DaVinci Resolve, if you use that, is 1/24th of a second. So that's why I use 1/50th at 1/200th of a second shutter speed, so I can at least get a 90-degree, and you can see by the footage that you've been watching If you've paused that as well when I waved my hand, you'll find that there is a decent amount of motion blur in there, and that is a way you can get motion blur on a pocket camera and get good digital stabilization. So just a quick one today, folks, and I hope you get value from that, and if you did, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications, and I will see you all later with a motion blur wave. Catch you all later, folks. Bye.